I did not know what to expect. It's one thing to see, I don't know, a dead body on TV, but it's no one prepares you for what you're about to experience when it's actually right in front of you.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Trace of Burnout. I'm Dan,
I'm Roger.
and today we have with us in our virtual studio Air Force veteran Miss Liz Taylor. How are you, Liz?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. Every day is an adventure.
It
So
is
we'll
indeed.
start the same way we always do. Does your family have a history of service?
No, not particularly. I think my dad was only in the army for, I believe, 2 years, but or maybe he wasn't even in the army. I'm not sure. I have like legitimate recorded service. I the first one.
It happens. Sometimes the tradition has to start with you, so that's
That's
okay.
right. So, where are you originally from?
I was born and raised in Kiev, Ukraine, and that's where my roots begin.
So how did you wind up here in the United States?
So, um, it's kind of a long story, but essentially, my grandmother's one of her husbands was able to come to United States under a refugee visa because the political situation in Ukraine and back in that time was not so great, and an opportunity presented itself to start a better life, and he took on that opportunity, and through him my aunt was able to come over to the States, and then after her my mom and my grandmother followed, so that's why we kind of all migrated here.
When was it that your mother and grandmother came over?
uh No, well, my mom, my grandma, and I, we all came to the States together, and that was back in January of 2001 is when we came to the States.
How old were you when you came over?
I was 13. Yeah, there were 13. I think I had my first 12 or 13. I had my either first 13th or 14th birthday in the States that year.
Did you speak any English when you came over?
My proficiency level in English was not quite there, even though they did teach us in school. And before coming to the States, my mom did try to enroll me in like some extra help classes.
Yeah.
But it's different from, when you're learning it in a foreign language environment to when you come to the States, and it's like a whole different ball game. So even though with all my time trying to prepare myself, the extent of my English was hello. My name is Elizabeth. I'm glad to meet you. Here's a quarter, penny, dime. Goodbye.
Which way to the bathroom?
This way.
Where is the library? Yes.
The
Yeah,
bibliothèque.
Yeah.
yeah, the bibliothèque.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
When
and it
you
was messed up. It was messed up too because I came to the States. I like barely spoke any English, and I started middle school. And in middle school was a requirement to take a foreign language class, and they stuck me in French because there was another Russian girl there that could speak and help me out. But I think all I was just bugging her too much because I couldn't understand the word.
So, where did y'all immigrate to exactly? Which state?
So we came to New Jersey,
Okay.
the hub, the hub of immigration for Italians and Russians, I guess, how they say. So we came to Cherry Hill, and it was like about, very close to Philadelphia. So we used to go across to the bridge in Philly all the time to just drive around the city.
Do you have an opinion on who makes the best cheesesteak?
I don't know. I haven't been there in so long. I've been to Gino's and Patty's Best. Best, both of them. I don't know. I like Gino's.
Okay.
I don't know,
There's no right or wrong answer. I was just curious. Okay.
but they're both equally as good. I don't know now. It's been so many years since I've been there, but
how long do you think it took you? I mean, looking back on it now, how long do you think it took you to really feel comfortable in the States?
Years,
Yeah.
years. Because so, it's a cultural shock coming from where you're coming from, and then you're going to a whole different country where you don't know anybody. And as a teenager, starting from essentially scratch is really, really hard. And, when I was in school back in Ukraine, when I was growing up as well, I was bullied a lot. My parents didn't have much. Like, I remember going into our kitchen sometimes in the middle of the night, turning on the lights, and cockroaches go just everywhere. And, there's no shame in that. I was still alive. I was fed. I had clothes. I had a roof over my head. And we just didn't have, as much as other people had. My dad was also, he drank a lot. He was very physical in his discipline. He beat me a lot and didn't treat my mom right well at all. There were nights when things would be thrown across the house. My mom would have to pack some things and leave and go to my grandma's house for a while. And I think her motivation to move to the States was just to get herself out of that situation. But, as a kid, you don't really understand what's happening because on one hand, you grow up around this stuff and it's like the norm to you. This is like, isn't this what every family is like? Or is it just mine? What do you mean other people have loving parents? This is my reality, it becomes normal to you. And then
It's if it's all you know, it's all you know.
yeah, that's all you know. And um I remember like people in school would make fun of me for silly things like my parents smoked inside the house and they would call me ashtray because my clothes was smelled like cigarette smoke because my parents smoked inside the house. And I remember like telling my dad one time like, hey, can you guys like open a window or whatever. My mom was all for it. My dad built, this is my house, my rules. So um but then coming to to the States, and now you have to adjust to this life. You don't have anybody to fall back on. Your only support is your mom, who's, is on the level too. You don't want to put extra pressure and burden on her to share all your issues because it's hard for everyone. It was a lot of pressure. It was a lot, made you kind of grow up faster than a normal kid.
At what point did you start thinking about military service?
So, um, because I guess you said I was having a hard time adjusting, just wanting to fit in with people. I made some questionable choices as a teenager, um, you know, just getting in trouble. And at one point, I was selling. Do you guys know what Cutco knives are?
Cut. Yeah,
Mhm.
my parents have
I
had a
used
set of Cutco knives
I
for
used to sell them door
yeah,
to door.
yeah. They
I
last forever.
used to sell. I still have a set since like '05 that I've never sharpened. They're amazing. Not to.
They were a wedding present for my parents in 1974, and they still have them.
That's insane. But you used to sell those door to door. And then I ended up working for a home care agency where my mom was handling billing, and I was just there, a home health aide. So I would go and help people, whether it's to uh, brush teeth, get groceries, help them take, live
Yeah.
essentially, you know. And I don't know, my life wasn't going anywhere because of my um, language struggles. I had issues retaining information, just constantly translating everything and trying to, pack it in. I just felt like I didn't have mental capacity. It's to an extent, and it kind of hindered my education. My grades weren't the best. I did end up going to college for one semester, and it was a community college that had 100% tuition because my mom applied for some kind of uh, a grant, and it was essentially paid for as long as you get above a certain grade level, you get to keep going. And my first semester, we were required to take another language. I already did French. I figured I'd take Spanish. And my Spanish teacher came in, and from day one, it was hola and Spanish. That's it. There was not a single word of English. And she would say, turn the page, and she would ask questions. And I would just sit there like, well, there goes my college. Because I just, you don't have an earpiece that translates everything. So I fell out of that. And um, that was the end of that. And I was still working this home care agency. And that place was shady too because I had patients. Mind you, I was like 18 years old, and I had a patient ask me like, "Hey, can you go pick up some liquor from a store for me?" And he was handicapped, and I was like, "I can't. I'm 18. They won't let me." He was like, "It's okay. I can go in your car," and I was like, "But you're in a wheelchair, and you're like big, and I'm not." This is not gonna work. So he was like, "No, we got this." So I wheel him out to the car. I get him, somehow get him into the car, pack his wheelchair. We drive him to the liquor store, and we're calling the liquor store, and he's in the car, and he's telling the manager, whoever, he's like, "I'm in the car, I can't get out." They're like, "Yeah, sorry, you have to be in here." So we had to get him out of the car again, get him into the store, get out of the store, get back into the car. And then he was like, "Hey, before we go back to the house, since I'm out and I haven't been out in a while, can we go drive by my buddy's house and say hi to him?" And I was like, ah, okay, just let's not take this too long because, we got to be back, and, like time and hours. And he was like, okay. And I took my first ride through the hood, and he was like, "No, you're okay. You're safe with me." And I was like, "We need to go home now. Like, I don't feel comfortable. Let's just go." And I told my boss, my manager, the whole story afterwards. And my mom was like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I was like, "This is like not what I signed up for." And the manager was like, "Well, you're such a good worker. Wait for you take care of your patients." And I was like, "Thanks." Same place that also encouraged me to, they were like, "Well, you look older. You can just go to the liquor store and buy him some, a 40. He'll be all right." So at some point, yeah, at some point I was like, "I can't do this. Like, my life is not going anywhere." And then a friend of mine joined the Air Force, and we kind of talked about why. And he, said, "We can get the heck out of here. You can travel. They'll, take care of your education, do something meaningful." And I said, "You know what? Why not?" I never thought that I would join the military ever in my life, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So the whole goal was to get away from New Jersey as far away as possible and
I
start
can
fresh.
understand Garden State. I understand. Yep.
So, did you think about any other services, or because you were talking to a friend of yours who was in the Air Force, you just figured, let's just go Air Force?
Um, I I don't know. I guess I was on. How everyone says, "Oh, Air Force is the best branch of all of them," and I don't know. I kind of started looking into where some bases were, just like the culture overall, and I've heard good things about Air Force. We had a Army recruiter across from our Air Force recruiter. Um, I don't know, he just had a bad, like a character, I don't know how people say, vibe to him.
Yeah.
Um, and there's just some certain people that meet, and you're like, "Oh, this nice conversation we're having." And some people you're just like, "Let me see what this other guy has to say." And he kind of roped me into it. I liked athleticism, like I liked working out. I liked cooking, and I was like, I don't know, I didn't feel like I was smart for anything because when I was a kid, My dad would always put me down, and people would always tell me that I'm stupid and I was slow. And the more you hear that, the more you start to believe that. So even with my ASVAB scores, they weren't very high. And when I went to see my recruiter, he said, well, I also wasn't a citizen at that time, but we're still in the process of getting our citizenship, and we were just waiting on our test date because we had our green card already, yeah. And so he said, you have these options available. You can do services, you can do supply, and there was another job. I don't remember what that other job was, but I couldn't even be security forces. I couldn't even be a cop because I didn't have a security clearance, so I wasn't able
Right.
to get one, and I wouldn't be able to travel overseas. So I asked him, like, well, what do these career fields do? And he was like, well, supply, it's like warehouses, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that seems like boring. I tend to jump from one job to another, and like I like to keep it interesting. So then he was like, well, here's services. You could be a personal trainer at the gym, you could be a cook, you could work in a lodging. There's other things you can do. And he sold me at personal trainer. And I was like, how likely is it that I'm actually going to work at a gym? And he was like, oh, high probability. And I said, sign me up.
I'm in.
I'm in. I was like, okay. I was like, if I can get out of here and get in shape and do something meaningful, I was like, send me, I'll go. And so the process started.
So when was this that as raised your right hand and enlisted?
I enlisted. You enlisted. Was it before the DEP program or after? I don't remember. Or is it the day? I got to basic April 2nd
Okay.
of '07.
Okay. So you were about a year removed from
I
high
was in
school?
a, yeah. I was in a DEP program. So I graduated high school in 2005, and then in 2006 is when I started looking into it. So from, I think it was like around December of '06, and then I ended up leaving for basic in April of '07.
Where was your basic training?
Lackland in Texas. San Antonio.
Definitely not New Jersey.
No, no, not New Jersey. And it's funny, I like, because I went through there in April, and I was under the expectation that it was going to be hot there, warm, and I didn't realize how crazy Texas weather was till it was pretty warm, mildly warm in the afternoon, and then in the morning I feel like 40 degrees. It was like frozen rain outside, tornado warnings. It was crazy. Definitely not New Jersey.
Yeah, what was your family's reaction to you enlisting? Your mom, your grandmother, your aunt,
My So my family had a bit of a falling out. Some grown-up family issues came up, and um, my my mom and my grandma, they're kind of separated from my aunt for a while, so she didn't even know that I enlisted. My grandmother, I don't know, we never really talked about it. She was supportive as far as I know. My mom was a little bit shocked. She was, uncertain. Are you sure this is what you want to do? The typical worries that a parent has. And I remember she tried to talk me out of it a few times, but I told her, I was like, no, I want to try to do this. So I was like, I signed up for 4 years. If 4 years it doesn't work out, I can do something else. Now 4 years turned into,
yeah. And at that time, we were fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. So yeah,
yeah.
how was how was your basic training experience?
Yeah.
I have a funny story about my first night of basic training. So, my recruiter forgot to mention the reporting statement to us. And when we got on the bus from the airport, pulling into, the our squadrons and whatnot, living quarters, and I remember them on the bus trying to take roll call. Or no, not on the bus. We got off the bus. We set all of our stuff down on the pad. We're all lined up. And then RTI was taking roll call, and she goes down the list, and then she reads all these last names. She goes, Bark and Chuckle. And, Bark and Chuckle. Nobody's, mind you, my last name at the time was Baron Chuck. So she's barking chuckle. Nobody's saying anything. I'm like, I'm not barking chuckle. So at the end, she was like, is there anybody's name that I didn't call? And I raised my hand. I was like, yes, ma'am. And she was like, what'd you say to me? And I said, yes, ma'am. She's, what'd you say to me? Ma'am, she's like, reporting statement, reporting statement. I'm like, what is that? Report your my name training. I was like, trainee Baron Chuck reports as ordered. You didn't call me ma'am. And she was like, I did call your name Bark and Chuckle. Now give me 10. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
So, like, on
You're
my
already
first
wrong.
night,
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So did 10 push-ups, and I was like, all right, we're starting out great. And then we were all, rushed to our base, and we rush in there. We pick a locker, any locker, but it has to associate with the bed, and you can't figure out anything because nothing is labeled. You're just overwhelmed. And then they're like, showers, you got to get into showers. So we had to take all of our clothes off, but I have no idea where the shower is, because when I came in, all I saw was just a stream of people going here and turning left. I didn't see what else was going on around me, so I have no idea where the showers are. And I remember going around the beds, and I see a door, and I was like, this must be showers. And I pushed the door open, and I was like, uh-oh, this is not showers. It was the emergency exit door from the second floor to go outside for fire drills. And then out of nowhere, my TI, poof, what the are you doing?
Making a run for it.
I was like, I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm sorry. She was like, get in the shower. I was like, I don't know where it is. She was like, you gotta be effing kidding me. She was like, just go. And I just ran with the rest of the people.
So you were not having a good first day.
Oh, I mean, now that I think about it, I think I laughed the first night when we were already laying down and the lights were out, and I was like, Jesus Christ, man. I was like, if this is how we're starting, I was like, we got 6 more weeks of this. What else is gonna
6 more
happen?
weeks. Let me ask Dan. Let me ask Dan, the former drill sergeant. Do y'all, if you have soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, if they have really thick accents or are, let's just say they're struggling with English because it's not their first language, like how do you manage that in a fair and equitable way?
You don't try to be fair and equitable.
You don't try to be fair.
No. Um, I did not, to the best of my knowledge, I did not really come across anybody with necessarily a foreign accent. We did have a kid with a very, very thick Mississippi accent,
I was going to
and
say
like
Louisiana, but okay.
and he just it sounded like he was mumbling everything. And so whenever he would say something, I would make up something completely different that wasn't what he said at all, and I would just go ballistic intentionally, intentionally to get
That
him to
doesn't sound
enunciate.
fair. You're correct.
Yeah, to get him to enunciate. And guess what? It worked.
If it works, it works.
What else? What else from basic?
Oh man. So I remember I was an element leader for a while. But then I fell out of that because I remember I was in formation one day and I had a bug on my nose, and it was itching me so bad. And I was trying to control myself so bad, like not just, not to do that. And I was kind of looking around for where my TI was. And I was like, well, if I can't see her, she probably can't see my face. And I kind of scanned around. She turns around, and as soon as she just turns, I go like, and she's like, baklava! And I was like, who's baklava? And then she was like, get back. She was like, "You're a road guard now." So then that day I lost my position and I became a road guard. And that was funny. And let's see, yeah, so she called me baklava for a while. We moved on from bark and chocolate to baklava. And I remember one time we were sitting in the day room shining our shoes, and she was telling jokes. And I raised my hand, and she was like, "What do you want, baklava?" And I said, "Ma'am, trainee Baranchuk reports as ordered. I really don't mind that you call me baklava because I don't know if you know, but baklava is a very tasty treat, so I take that as a
Delicious.
compliment." I did a lot of push ups, but after that, the next time she called me Baranchuk.
There you go.
And when she did, it caught me completely off guard because for the last, like, I don't know, 5.5 weeks, I've been called baklava to like Baranchuk, and I was like, what's going
It's a
on?
good psyop. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did end up getting injured in basic. We had laundry duty one day, and I was walking fast into the laundry room where the washers were, and I ended up slipping on the floor, and I busted my right leg, like I face planted the floor, and right below my knee, I had this like this big of a black bruise, and I had issues marching. I could not go down the stairs, and they wanted to send me to fifth flight to recover. But I have heard horror stories because I was trying to get through basic training, not to get kicked out of it or prolong my process there. So I was like, I'm just gonna suck this one up and let it heal. And I remember we had to do our PT test and run our mile and a half. And I ran my mile and a half, and I believe it was like 12 minutes and 30 seconds. But my leg felt, I don't want to say like broken, it was scalding hot. It was just, I felt like my knee was crumbling into pieces. And luckily for me, when we were done with basic training, our tech school was right across, essentially the base was like on the other side of Lackland in Medina. So I was able to go see somebody for my knee. And then I ended up getting me this big brace that went from like my upper thigh all the way down to my ankle. And that's how I was walking around for a little bit until it felt good enough to just walk, but not run.
And you were already far enough into your basic training that they didn't have to recycle you.
No, because
Okay.
I was so our basic was 6 weeks, and I don't remember when exactly that happened, but I remember my TI talking to me about it, and she said, like, that looks pretty bad. Like, are you sure you don't want to get it checked out? And I was just like, no, I don't. And you know, not that I look back at it, maybe I should have, because now it's never been, looked at, but now I have this like softball size mass that has developed under it, and it affects the rest of me down there,
Yeah.
so.
So you get done with basic training, and then you go pretty much just across the base to go to your specialty school.
Yes.
How long was that? And then two, because your specialty, the services covers so many different fields or so many
Mhm.
different areas, how did that training sort of break down?
You would think it would be very, how do you say it, in depth. But from what I remember, our tech school was, let's see, I graduated in May. May, yes. So from May to June, it was only about 4 weeks long. And the way they had it split up was like different days you would do different things. So like Monday you would go work in a dining facility, Tuesday or something you would do gym, and it was dependent on your um like stages. I don't remember doing much of lodging or mortuary or any of that stuff. I remember our tech school being more focused on food and like building tents and stuff and gym equipment. I think we only had like one day of gym when they just walked us around the gym and said, "Hey, this is where you squat. This is where you do leg press." Just kind of give you an overview of what every muscle in the machine worked. Um, but other than that, it was more focused on food. This is the first place where I learned about over easy, over medium, and over hard eggs.
You can't go wrong. They're all good.
It's true. It's true they are. But there wasn't an
Yeah.
in-depth, 2.5 month specialized school teaching you to be a personal trainer.
No, no. No, because those classes, because ideally what was supposed to happen is after you graduate tech school, you get slotted to wherever you're gonna go work. Like if you go work to the gym, right? You obviously need to have some kind of certification for to be able to teach classes and whatnot. And ideally, they are supposed to put you through classes that you would attend where you would get your training and certification at wherever your next base is. And in the meantime, you're learning how to take care of the equipment and be there as customer service for other people. So technically, when you first get into, let's say, the gym, you're not even supposed to teach. You're supposed to kind of observe,
Mhm.
learn, and take care of everything else.
That's an interesting way to go about it, I guess. Give you a little bit of on the job training across all the
Yeah.
fields so that you get pretty good on each one of them. But
Yeah, because ideally they're supposed to rotate people around because it would be kind of messed up to keep somebody in food for 6 years while the other person is working out in the gym for 6 years. You got to give everyone an opportunity to rotate through different sections, and that's ideal world. That's not how it ends up working most of the time, but you know, they try.
yeah,
They definitely did try, and when I was in Germany, I got an opportunity to do kind of a little bit of everything.
Was that your first
okay,
duty assignment?
No, my first duty assignment was at Langley, Virginia.
Ah, I know it well.
okay, yeah, not too far from home.
I was so disappointed when I figured out where Virginia was at on the map.
It's not too far from New
Oh,
Jersey, but I
no,
love
listen,
the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. I love it. So
when everyone were getting their assignments, right? And I was just sitting there because I really didn't know what I was qualified for. I knew I couldn't go anywhere overseas because, you know, my citizenship and all that stuff and security clearance and people getting cool assignments to like England and Germany and Japan and like California and Florida, and they're like, "Ah, Baranchuk, going to Langley," and I was like, "Where's Langley?" And they're like, "Oh, it's in Virginia," and I'm like, I was like, "Oh no." I was like, no. I was like, it's a bit further back, not down. So then I called my mom and I was like, "Yeah, I found out where I'm going today." And she was like, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "Virginia." She's like, "Well, where's that?" And I was like, "Virginia." And she was like, "Did you say Virginia?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "I can come see you every weekend." And I'm like, "No." So, and I ended up when I got there, I ended up working in food. That was my first introduction to services.
When did you report into to Langley?
I believe it was June of '07. June. Yeah. June, July-ish, I think. I think it was June, July time frame.
How was it? You're not in training anymore.
It was busy. It was a lot. it was a lot of pressure to keep up with everything that was happening because working in a dining facility, I mean, that's, not only are you cooking all day, you're also serving. And then whenever you have free time, you try to take advantage of that as much as you can. But sometimes, you have to do your training requirements and everything else. So sometimes it just felt like I was like a robot all day, in and out. You wake up, you go cook, you clean, you cook again, you go back, you can go sleep, you wake up, same thing every day. Um, but it was a lot of hard work. I've was a lot of food prepared on daily basis,
Yeah.
like a lot. We served a lot of people too, obviously. I remember working midnight chow, and one of the items we would have would be scrambled eggs. And on like Friday nights, Saturday nights, yeah, get your drunks that come in for midnight chow. And I remember just messing with them, just start speaking to them half in English, half in Russian, and they'd be confused, just seeing you, looking at you like, "Are you okay?" Trying to take their order, just messing with people.
So, working in the dining facility, how does that work for you guys? I mean, like, do you work like one meal? Do you work a certain number of hours? How do the shifts break down?
So they break him down based on, I believe it was a meal serving time. So like your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So like whoever would work midnights, they would obviously work throughout the whole night, and they would prepare some items for people in the morning for breakfast. But then there would be items that we also had to cook in the morning because, to make sure they were very, very fresh. And then let me see. Yeah, we would serve that, we'll clean up, then do our training, whatever. And then lunch came about. Uh, we we served lunch, and then you'd have the next shift that would come in, and they would do dinner, and then the midnight chow. So that's how I'm remembering that they had it split. So
For the breakfast shift, if the dining facility opens at 6 o'clock in the morning for breakfast, what time were you guys getting there to start preparing the food?
oh boy, that's a good question. I don't remember, but I remember early.
Yeah,
Very early. Like
yeah,
5, at least 5 in the morning we had to be there. I
yeah,
mean, you also got to keep in mind, like we had a lot of equipment. Like we could handle a production of large quantity of food. It's not like, kitchen oven, but I do remember it was very, very early.
yeah. I mean, you're. I don't know how many service members come through the facilities on Langley, but generally speaking, a dining facility is serving thousands of people every
Yeah,
day,
it's
and
a
so
lot.
you there is so much food being prepared, even if it's not, even if it doesn't end up getting used or eaten for that meal. So
You
yeah,
prepare so much food, you end up coming home smelling like food.
Yeah,
yeah,
And it's just, I mean, it's the honest truth. Like I've my chef whites, oh my God, it smell like so much bacon.
I guess there's worse
Just
things to smell like. What do you do with all the
oh yeah.
leftovers?
So the leftovers, let's see. So if we had like leftovers from like lunch, and it would be dinner time, if we ran out of food, we would use lunch's leftovers to serve as like an addition for dinner, and that's how we kind of would do it. But if nothing would be eaten after that, you would just toss it.
Hmm.
mm,
And I cannot tell you how many steaks with this system were tossed at my first deployment with these waste procedures. It was just thousands of dollars thrown in trash. It was crazy.
That's why I asked, because I imagine it's a lot.
yeah,
Yeah. And the saddest part about it is that, you know, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little maybe later or whenever. Like, so when we cooked food, we had to follow their Air Force recipe cards. Like, if we made any alterations to the recipe, we could have gotten in trouble. We had a when I was stationed in Germany, we had a local national who almost got fired for putting something into mac and cheese to make it taste better, and like that was a really really big deal. So I have these recipes that we had, we didn't even want to cook them because we knew it was not that good. We knew it could be better, but we weren't allowed to make changes.
The change wasn't sour. It wasn't sauerkraut, was it?
No.
That would make it better.
The military has and it's probably different by service, but they have the dietary um,
The
nutrition index that they
the
use.
red amber green.
So, well, I
Hmm.
mean that's what it was for a period of time. I don't know if it still is, but even before that, it wasn't that way. But so you can't alter anything because each item has to be within a certain level of nutrients, nutrient density, or what have you. And if you alter that even just a little bit, you're violating it for you know potentially hundreds or thousands of people. So yeah.
But you know, even now, I remember like not that long ago, maybe a few years back, before I retired, and I know what you're talking about. I went to one of the dining facilities here on around here, on base, and they had their cards, the yellow, amber, and green cards. And y- you know, sometimes I think about these things, and I'm like, what is the point? Because I look at the across the whole serving line, and there's only one green card there.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah, pretty much. And then with the green cards, nobody's really eating it. Yeah, and that just leads to more waste. Yeah.
yeah.
So how long were you at Langley?
So let's see. I was at Langley for about a year, and then I got orders to go to Remstein.
Oh wow, only after a year?
Yeah, I got lucky.
Wow.
I so when after I finished tech school, I ended up coming home for recruiter's assistance duty, and that's when I took my citizenship and I got my fancy certificate and everything, became a citizen. So when I went to Langley at that time, because I was a citizen at this point, they said, "Hey, we can give you security clearance." So I got that. I had to denounce my citizenship from Ukraine, and then everyone was submitting wish lists, and I said, "I'll try." Didn't really know what I was doing. I just put Ramstein on there and ended up getting it.
During that year that you were at Langley, did your mother come and see you every weekend?
No. No, she did not. I did come and visit her because it was, uh, the drive was not that bad. It was only about like 6 hours or something like that. So I was able to go visit her once in a while. But no, she did not come see me every weekend. So that was nice. But I tell you what, though, I do once I got to Germany, I quickly started to realize that maybe I should have taken the advantage of being so close to her and seen her a little bit more, because when I got to Germany, I mean, it was very difficult. You spend like 4 years on the other side of the ocean. It's not that easy to just take a drive for the weekend there.
Yeah.
So,
So you went to Ramstein in about uh, summer or fall of 2008.
it was winter actually. January. January seems to be recurring month in a lot of events. So again, January of '09 is when I got to Germany.
It's
I
cold.
imagine that, yeah, the difference between January in Virginia and January in Ramstein is a pretty
Yep.
big difference.
Yes. At this time when I PCS to Germany, I was pregnant. My then husband and I were obviously moving together. But I was 8 months pregnant. My due date was February, and we got to Germany in January. My commander was so mad. She was so pissed. Um, the, incoming at Ramstein, because not only was it me, but a friend of mine who was also pregnant with me at the time from the same squadron was going to the same squadron to the same commander in Germany. So she wasn't just getting one pregnant girl, she was getting two of them.
Yeah. Oh,
So I can only imagine now. And she was, I loved her, Colonel Lancaster, bless her heart. She's such an amazing woman. And I can only imagine like the shock on her face and like both of them. Like, why do they keep sending me pregnant people?
yeah. I mean, you have a manpower shortage that the
Yeah,
personnel are supposed to be coming in to fill, and then you find out that the people that are filling that shortage, you're about to lose them for
for a
I don't
while.
know how long maternity leave is
It
for
was
the air.
6 weeks at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So basically now you have another 2 months of a manpower
two
shortage.
shortfalls. Yeah.
But on paper, that shortage has already been filled
Mm-hmm.
and you can't do anything
Yeah.
about it. Yeah. I can understand that
Yeah.
frustration. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty messed up. And I mean, I tell you, like traveling that far, that late in the pregnancy, I mean, that was not fun either. I remember getting on the plane. I had, first of all, I didn't expect it to be as cold as it was over there. I figured that, like I remember how cold it was in Ukraine. I was like, that's going to be about the same, but it was a lot colder. And after being on the plane for so long, I remember getting all, like, I remember having to untie my sneakers, and I would have to make them looser and looser and looser and looser throughout the flight. So it came a point where I couldn't even fit my foot into a fully unlaced sneaker. It just looked like a busted can of biscuits. And I had the sole of my shoe, well, I mean the back of my shoe, it was just like folded in, and I essentially walked out looking like I stuck two pieces of dough into a shoe and tried to make them flip-flops or something. I don't know, but it was horrible. And then my feet just would not, the swelling was so bad, and it was like that for a few days too. And then I don't know, just having being so close to, delivering to, and then uncertainties, and you have to find a house now, and you have to get everything done ready for a baby, I mean, within like a month. And then you're like freshly new PCS there, you have to find a house. You can't stay in TLF the whole time you were there. Yeah, it was
Yeah, it's a lot.
very it was a lot. And mind you, I was very young too. I was like a, what was I, E3 at that time.
Yeah.
I was a brandy spanking new E3 with a civilian husband and a baby.
How helpful was the I guess the Air Force or your new unit in helping you with all these things? Getting things that you needed for the baby, getting set up for medical services and your providers, getting a house. How helpful was
I had to figure out everything on my own. I only had really uh, a few good friends that helped me out, but as far as leadership went, finding a house, that was on me. My ex-husband did not really contribute anything, so I had to figure out a lot of everything on my own. Um, I don't I remember my leadership being very helpful when it came time to send my ex-husband home. Um, because I don't know, I guess we came there both with two different expectations, one on one side we were having a baby, right? And we had to have a family, raise a family. At least that's where I was at. But his priorities were elsewhere. He was more focused on partying and stuff. And I remember coming home, tired and having to do mortuary things, and he just not being supportive. He just felt like more of a roommate than anything. And it was starting to affect me a lot. Our relationship got really bad and not safe environment. And I remember my then commander, Colonel Lancaster, pushing for separation. So I had to, for the safety of me and my son, I had to move out of my own house, 40 minutes away, so that he didn't know where I was. Because as a civilian overseas, he still had his rights, and I couldn't just, kick him out. He had to have a place to stay, and they created the early return of dependent paperwork to send him home. And that was pushed by my commander to the group commander. They got him an emergency passport, like took away his base access and everything. Um, and through all of this, I'm still at work. And when I first got there, we had another uh, sergeant that was pregnant, who was one of our NCOs. And I remember like coming into work at 4 o'clock in the morning. And mind you, I had to get up at like 3:30 because when I came to Germany, I was working at the gym, and the gym opened at 4. So we had to be there before, or no, it opened at 5, but we had to be there before, or 5 or 6. I'm sorry, I misspoke. We opened at 6, but we had to be there at 4 at the gym to open up for the gym at 4. And I had to get up around like 3:20, 3:15 just to get to work to open up for the gym. I did that while I was pregnant, and I started being realistic, like, hey, this is not gonna work for me after my son is here, because where is he gonna go? So the initial plan was for my ex-husband to watch him, and then figure out daycare, then bring him to daycare, and so he could go to work, because I had to be in work so early. Well, that never happened, and at one point, there was an agreement that after I had my son, I could come into work to work at 6:30. Just come in 2.5 hours later, and then I would stay 2.5 hours later to kind of cover both shifts that replace each other, be like the middleman to float around. Um, and that never happened. I ended up having daycare in the morning. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I would take my son to this Indian lady that lived in town, and she kind of had a daycare out of her house. And then, while at the same time, I'm still getting drilled at work about having childcare on base. You need to get CDC. You need to get CDC. You need to get CDC. And I'm like, I'm trying. I'm on the waiting list. I'm still waiting. There's a lot of people. And I finally get a call saying like, hey, we got a spot for you at CDC on base. Would you like to take it? And I said, absolutely, yes, sign me up so I can start coming in, bring my son in, because they opened at 6, which would be perfect. I'd drop him off at 6, on base at daycare, and then by 6:30 I'm at work. Not even 6:05, because it was like right there. And I tell my leadership, and they're like, great, you still need to be here at 4 o'clock. So I was like, okay, so now I'm coming into work at like, you know, my normal time, take my son to the babysitter, and then they're still drilling my head about CDC. So now they said, because, we do stuff here, we really need you on base, can't afford you going off base, your son needs to be on here. So then I said, okay, I'm gonna have both at this point. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, I would take my lunch break to pick up my son from the babysitter off base to bring him to the babysitter to bring him to CDC on base, and that was the rest of my workday at the gym.
Okay. We're
Yeah.
going to take a break, and then we've got some more questions about Germany when we come back.
All right.
All right. So you're in Germany, and because of your specialty, covering so many different fields, you had done, food. You had worked at the dining facility at Langley. When you showed up to Germany, um, is it kind of like a blank slate, and they just put you in where they need you because you wound up working at the gym? Uh, did you get an option, like you chose to change it up, or they just put you where they
No,
needed you?
they just put you based on their needs. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but once you, well, like I said before, once you get placed somewhere, though, technically you're supposed to give that opportunity, that person an opportunity to rotate to other facilities. And on Ramstein, we had a lot. We had two gyms, we had two dining facilities, hotel.
Hmm.
So the KMC Mall over there that they have at Ramstein, that was run by services.
Yeah. How many people are in the services uh, squadron, I guess?
I honestly have no idea. In the hundreds,
Oh
probably.
wow.
Because
To to ser-
because
to
when you
service
think
to
because
service
when
those
you think about
facilities.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, because I mean when you think about it, you have your gym. Well, maybe not 100. Maybe I'm over speaking because we did our squadron shared with personnel too, so it wasn't just services. So it's kind of hard to gauge of, specific number of how many people there were. I just, remember faces. But there was a lot of us. Was a
Yeah.
lot of us. Maybe not 100. Maybe that's too much, but
Yeah. Ramstein is huge.
yeah.
And you have multiple facilities. You have multiple shifts for each facility.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's a lot of people. It's a lot
Yeah,
of
and
people.
then there we also ran so prime ribs, like bare bases setup. We did all that too. So it's not just, burgers and weights.
Prime ribs take a long time.
Yeah. We so when I got to Germany, like I said, I got to the gym, right? So I get there, I have my son. I came back to work, I think it was like what, 6 weeks? Came back to work around like April. And that's when they slammed the whole, hey, by the way, we also do mortuary here. And we have this detail called human remains, and you're going to training for that. And the training really consisted with going to the mortuary people, to the readiness folks, and learning how to properly drape a transfer case, how to, open it, how to take out a body, or not take out a body, how to move the body, or where to put the bags. Um, we would do search and recovery exercises, part of mortuary, where we would have to go line up in a line and search the area. So you like step, you look around, find something, you bag and tag it, you know, put a flag there where you found it. Um, and I did not know what to expect. It's one thing to see, I don't know, a dead body on TV, but it's no one prepares you for what you're about to experience when it's actually right in front of you, you know? And I don't. remember my first time like too well whenever the first body I received, but I remember during the training everyone said if there's no flag, there's potentially no bag. And that would kind of be a saying, no flag, no bag, meaning that when you get the transfer case and if there is no flag on that transfer case, when you open it, the body may or may not have a body bag on it, or, so be prepared for what you may or may not about to witness. And I remember the first transfer case, we went on a flight line and I had these huge refrigerator units where one side would open to the bay and the other side would open to the flight line. That's how they would bring their stuff in. And I remember that first transfer case rolling in and it had no flag on it, and my heart dropped because I didn't know what to expect. Luckily, you know, when we opened the lid, there was a bag. Thank goodness. Um, but there have been pretty horrific stories I've heard from friends. Um, I had friends that have been affected so much by this whole duty that it later on turned out to be was supposed to be voluntary, but it was mandatory for us. And in the words of our OIC, if you can't do this, you don't deserve to be in my Air Force. And never mind how it messes you up in the head, because here you are. In my case, initially it was here you are going to re-ice a body. Some days you would you'd pick up the headpiece and there was just everything would slide off and you're like, oh, the associated portions today, and it's like it becomes like the norm. And then you go back to the gym and then you're like teaching all these like classes and muscle groups and body parts, and it's like
Water
that's kind of
aerobics.
weird. I was like, that's kind of weird. Like I was like, I touched the leg this morning. Now, I'm doing leg extensions. It just it's odd. But then, you know, and I was like, okay, this someone has to do it, obviously, right? And I don't know, for me personally, I guess you kind of just disassociate from it or like detach from it. It just becomes, this is just a bag, and I need to put more bags in this container. And there's just some stuff in this bag that needs to be refrigerated. That's how you kind of that's how I looked at it. The less I thought what was inside of it, the easier it made. But we had I remember one time we had um I believe it was 6 CIA agents that passed down range, and their bodies were escorted by Secret Service. And I remember them bringing in the transfer cases, and summer, the gases they build up. And I mean, if you had to do this on a plane on the worst summer days when there's just nothing but heat, it's the smell does not leave your life. Like I
Yeah.
can still smell the same thing when I go to Publix to get yogurt. It is like specifically that, something about that section, and so many places like that. But I remember that we opened the transfer case and it was just full of blood. And we stood there and we were like, well, crap, we need to clean this out because this can't go to Dover like this. This is gonna, this needs to be fixed. We didn't have a fix. The best fix that the NCOs had was a shop vac that we ended up putting into like 3 layers of trash bags and sucking all the blood out of there. And we re-iced it. We draped the flags on the transfer cases, and then the problem was, well, what do we do with this blood? Like, where do we dispose of it? This is considered to be like hazardous waste or whatever. And I don't remember if this was like on the weekend this happened, but for whatever reason, like people could not get a hold of medical to like find out what to do with it. So I remember them taking the bag to our storage closet behind the squadron, and with all like some other supplies like brooms and stuff, and them just leaving it there. till eventually I hope they figured out what to do with it.
Yeah.
But, you know, because we couldn't they couldn't just toss it into a trash can either, you know.
Yeah.
Wow. They
So they
shouldn't.
really,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
medical waste. That's got to be disposed of properly.
yeah.
Wow.
And then there have been some pretty I don't remember a lot of this particular time frame. I just know on paperwork it says I've re-iced a lot of bodies. Probably more than, anybody should.
Are we talking dozens, hundreds?
We're talking about over 200. And that was between, '09 to what, 14. And then I also re-iced some when we were deployed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot. Now, like my friend, a friend of mine, she will be forever traumatized from her event. When they opened a transfer case, I guess they ran out of body bags downrange, and they just plastic wrapped the body. But when they opened the lid, a head fell out. So she's got to live with that. And I have another friend of mine, Terry Casper. Unfortunately, he couldn't live with it, and he ended his life over this.
It's
You
a
know,
lot for a person to deal with, for sure.
it
Yeah.
is. It is.
So that was supposed to be an optional duty.
Or an additional duty. Yeah.
Yeah, an additional duty. So you were at that time that you were also working in mortuary affairs. You were still working at the gym.
Yeah, because they considered that we would be put on call. So like, everything was like either on 2 weeks or a week you were on rotation, where you would have, because we didn't have obviously a scheduled time, like the bodies are coming in on Mondays and Fridays, that would just come in whenever. So you could get called in the middle of the night to go do this, or like early in the morning, but then you'd still have to show up to work. It doesn't matter what time it was. So
And you deployed uh, out of Germany while you were there.
yeah, so yep, so let's see. I Yeah, so I was there. So we got there in '09 in January, came back to work around April. Stuff got bad between me and my husband. By November that year, he was out, and I ended up deploying in April of 2010. And that was a very, very stressful and busy place.
Before you deployed, obviously you had to have a care plan in place for your child.
Hmm. Yeah.
How did that work? I mean, stateside, it's one thing. You can have for short term purposes. You can have give somebody you can have a custody agreement in your
Hmm.
family care plan to have somebody take care of your kid for a few days while you're in the field
Yeah.
or doing whatever. A parent, a friend, neighbor, whatever. But you're on another continent.
I used to have to do the same thing. Just have to, instead of moving from one state, you're moving to from another country to your parents. So what I did, what I ended up doing was getting a power of attorney for my mom. We got her, luckily, she lived close to McGuire Air Force Base.
Mhm.
So I was able to get her a pass to go on base and to use the commissary and to get my son into CDC on there. So, I just had to bring him over from Germany to uh, Jersey for the time that I was deployed.
Okay.
It was a lot of coordination, and
Yeah.
I remember having a lot of issues with paperwork about getting her a pass on base, because I was stationed overseas and I didn't have a letter from my commander. And I remember I had to like email back and forth while I was on leave with with my people over at work in Germany, and saying like, hey, can we get like this letter from at least the first sergeant or something? So
Yeah. It's a whole lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
Always,
So then
always
I,
paper.
yeah, and then April, yeah, April I deployed, and then I was gone for 6 months. And my son was only, let's see, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He was like a little over a year
Where
when
did
I
you deploy
first
to?
time deployed. I went to Al Udeid Air Base, so in Qatar.
So, what were your main functions there?
So I got there and I was again working in a dining facility, but was one of the main ones on like where everybody lived on that side. And our jobs was to essentially supervise TCNs and run the dining facility.
Third
So
country
make sure,
nationals.
yep, third country nationals, and there were over 6 months of working with them. You realize how they're such hardworking people, and when by the end of my deployment there, my eyes were kind of opened up a lot to how much people get taken advantage of. Um, they would talk about how much they would make working, in a dining facility, and they would obviously talk about their families and how, like, there was one guy, that's all he did was just he literally lived in Qatar working and sending all the money back to his family. And he was like, I don't know what another life is. This is all I know. And it's really hard because then you see the amount of food that's being wasted, and it's like, holy crap, there's a disconnect somewhere here. Like,
Did you work in the dining facility the whole time?
there, yes. The whole time I was in the dining facility. So while the TCNs cooked food, so we were not allowed to help them cook. We would get in trouble if we did. Um, that deployment, I like to say, I worked with the Gordon Ramsay on steroids. That made the environment extremely stressful and just toxic for a lot of people. Um, and it got to the point where I remember being yelled at for helping TCN peel eggs because it was violating their statement of work and their contract. But then there would be times when I was on night shift and you have to do something, and when no one was looking, you would help them out, whether it was cut something or whatever else. But our main job was there to make sure that they didn't mess up food and to serve it and do your Connex checks, which were huge refrigerator units. You would go outside every hour, and you would make sure they stay at a constant temperature. And if something goes wrong, you obviously have to either fix it or call somebody to fix it. Um, and that was the environment was just stressful. There was a lot of we served an enormous amount of people. Um, That was the I was also sexually assaulted on this deployment. He was a master sergeant, and I was made feel like, I couldn't say anything. What happened happened, keep your mouth shut. And I remember coming in the next day, um, I was on the serving line, and I saw him come through, and I said, "Excuse me, I need to go." So we had eh, in our dining facility, we had a section of kitchen that was not being used. It was kind of dark. They would keep it for something else. If there was, I think, construction going on or something. And I had to excuse myself. Like, there was so much going on. I had to remove myself from the situation. And I went in there and I sat down on a chair and I was just kind of sitting like this, and I don't know. I was just thinking about many things, and the next thing you know, the door opens, and it is the said master sergeant that I refer to, Gordon Ramsay on steroids, and my senior. And there is. Liz, sitting in a chair in the dark, looking like she's half asleep. What are you doing? And I was so afraid of her that I just lied. I was like, I'm looking for my iPod. So, long story short, I get a LOR for abandoning my post. Um, it was made a very, very big deal. It affected my performance report because I did not, I got a 4. That whole LOR ended up screwing me out of a deck. Um, but I couldn't say anything. I was too afraid because I my leadership was not the greatest, and even there were times when they were like, ask, tell us what's going on, what is bothering you, how can we be better? No one could say anything because it would be used against them. So that deployment was horrible. And then I come back home. I go pick up my son, and my son throughout this whole time, I had such a hard time just getting a hold of my mom to Skype because back then Skype was not, the best, especially from a deployed environment. So I only had so many opportunities to speak with him during the whole time I was deployed. And then I come home and it really hit me that, you know, I need to start looking at different options for a different kind of job because when I came home and my son was calling my mom mama, that was heartbreaking to me, you know? And it took a while for him to look at me and say, "Oh, mama," you know? But I don't know. I guess one, the prices you pay for deploying as a single parent, you know?
Yeah.
So. So I returned, let's see, September. I got back sometime in September. And then after I came back from my deployment, I was working in a flight kitchen. They moved me, and the flight kitchen was a slower pace but busier pace environment. It's like such a weird thing to say because we didn't have to worry about, feeding the whole base population for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We just had to worry about the people that were on the flight line. So our serving line went from like here down to like, here. Um, but we had to do flight meals. And if you ever been on a military plane and you get your little box of meals, those little containers was just chicken strips, sandwiches, sodas, whatever. We used to build those. Well, not build those, but pack those.
Yeah.
And I remember we would have different missions come in, and different missions would require a different amount of um, meals. And we had this huge, long, two-sided table that we would line up with boxes, and we would go one by one: soda, 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 candy bar, candy bar, candy bar, candy bar, chicken strips, chicken strips, chicken strips. And then the chicken strips and the sandwiches and all that stuff you also had to make yourself. So you have an order that comes in for like 85 meals. You got to make those 85 meals. You have an order that comes in for 45 meals. You got to make those. And then you have days when you have a call comes in like, yep, need 25 boxes. And then 5 minutes later, we need 85. So now we're like stacking everything up. It was crazy.
Flyboys.
Going back to your deployment, when you deployed, did your unit deploy as a whole, or was it just a few of you going over to IUD for to fill certain spots?
Like augmentees, basically.
Yeah, we just came in because our rotations were split between different bases. So we would all kind of meet up. So they would, have their certain quota that they had to meet of people that they had to send. And it would obviously always depend on if you went or not. They did try to give people an opportunity to deploy. There were some people that didn't want to go, and they, still made them go. But they tried to be fair about that.
Yeah.
So the the toxic leadership that you talked about that you had while you were
Mhm.
deployed, that was a different leadership element than you had in Germany.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the person that assaulted you was not even part of your unit at all.
No. No. Not at all.
So
Not at all.
you're in a you were in a difficult enough situation as a single parent, away from your child, that and you're having a hard time getting a hold of your mom because technology was what it was back then. You have a different leadership element that is not great, and you have, you know, they don't know you and you don't know them, but they're not
Yeah.
great. And then you have uh, another person from outside your unit entirely that has then assaulted you.
Yeah.
That is just that is an absolute just rodeo.
I had so there was a few of us from my squadron at Ramstein that deployed together, and I did, one of my friends who was I want to call him a friend, because he was very supportive at that time. He asked me, he was like, how, like, I'm looking at you, he was like, are you all right? Like, how's everything at the defect over there? Because he was working somewhere else on base, also supporting a services facility. And I was honest with them. I was like, we're all stressed out. We're all getting yelled at for no reason. It's just toxic. Like, I'm burnt out, and the other person will not hear anybody's side, even though they say they want to understand what's happening and how they want to make the environment better. And he was a master sergeant, and he was like, let me talk to her. And I was like, please don't say anything. I was like, I don't want any like drama. I was trying to actually get moved out of the dining facility, but they wouldn't let me. And I guess he said something to her, and I got pulled into the office. And then I was told that I used my son as an excuse for everything, even though I was trying to confide in that person and tell her how difficult it really was to be here in the first place. And, you know, that was that.
Hmm.
That is an awful situation.
It's not a good situation at all.
Yeah.
And then, and on top of all of that, um, also here, mortuary detail too. And I didn't even know for like the first couple of months that when I was there that they did it. And then they were like, well, who's doing human remains today? And they're like, oh, we got Baranchuk. And, or, well, my last name was at the time, they sent me up there. And, not only am I still doing human remains at Remstein, thought I'd get a break, but here I am back again doing the same thing I did over in Germany, you know? And then I come home and keep doing it for 2 more years, 3 more years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. That is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it had to, it has to be done. World goes on, days go on, people have to be fed, and you just have to bite your tongue and just pull through it and count your days. Be like, I'm almost home, almost home.
So, what happens after Rammstein when your tour in Rammstein is up?
So I ended up having to cross train because our career field was overmanned, and I made a decision to retrain to another career field. I retook my ASWEB scores. I scored higher, and based on what was available, I looked into command control, battle management operations, and they at Ramstein they had the air operations center, so I was able to go in there and kind of get a tour of the like shadow the career field and see what they do. And when I went on to the ops floor, uh, of the facility, I was kind of mind blown. I was like, "Oh my god, this is just like in the movies."
Like a movie,
And
yeah.
and that's like coming from a background where you just do nothing but like cook all day and rack weights. It's kind of cool. You're like, this exists. I can be doing this. I'm qualified for this. I was like, I want to do this, and then I did.
So just to elaborate on that, what is that command and control? Like what is that job? What do you do in that?
So our job has also a lot of different, I guess, specialties within it. So you could either do surveillance, you could do tactical data links, you could be a weapons director, the person that's on the headset actually, talking to the fighters. My job was surveillance, so I would track, identify aircraft. I would build restricted operative zones, clear airspace for drops or you know their targets and whatnot. And
Cool.
that
That is
was
a,
So
very
that is
different
a huge
from
right
food.
turn from what you were doing before.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's a huge difference. So did you have to go through, because you got some sort of on the job training shadowing time there, uh,
Hmm.
but did you have to go and actually go through a retraining like a for a new specialty
Yeah, yeah,
school?
yeah. Yeah, so February of 413, yeah, no, 14, one of those. I went to Mississippi first because so I had orders to go to Fort Hood, but those orders got canceled and switched
Great
to
place.
Mountain Home, Idaho. Um and I remember I leaving from Germany. I went to Mississippi to Biloxi, and I think it was 6 or 8 weeks that I was there. And I guess the recurring theme is we'll teach you a little bit of everything, and then the rest, kind of figure it out on your own or with more training, you know.
Sounds like
So
all services. Yeah.
it very much felt like services with different like lodging, food, fitness, but now it was WDs, ACTs, surveillance. So I'm like, there's this recurring of ADHD theme of a little bit of everything. So they did so they covered a few things in tech school, and then when you get to your first base is when they assign you like, hey, this is what you're going to be doing. And then after you do that for a while, you also get other opportunities to do other things. Or if you want to be a WD controller, you can go to the weapons director's course and do that. And I was doing surveillance in Mountain Home. That was my first job on my deployment with them as well.
So Mountain Home, Idaho.
Hmm.
Does that have more in common with it? Does that have more in common with New Jersey or Germany or neither?
Neither.
Yeah.
I wish it was like this in the back here, but there was a lot of the winter and the snow in the winter, but a lot of just dead grass, just dead.
Not the
The
pretty part
most
of Idaho. Yeah.
No, I feel like the most green that we had was either on base or like some parts in town because everything was just desert and tumbleweeds.
Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The non pretty part of Idaho.
Yeah, we used to have these tumbleweed storms like every like September, October-ish. We'd have so many of them, and we had our tactical pad, and you'd have these like large gates, and it would just be a whole mountain of them. We'd have to bring a 5-ton truck and get the airmen to remove the tumbleweeds, and they would go and take them to the burn pit to burn them.
I was gonna say they burn real good. Dude. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you report to Mountain Home? What year?
I like around April of 14-ish, I believe.
Okay, so
Yeah,
at,
April
at
of
some,
14.
your initial enlistment was 6 years, right?
Hmm.
So at what point did you reenlist?
I reenlisted when I was in Germany, so that I could retrain.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I figured. That's what I figured.
yeah.
How long did you reenlist for?
I think it was like the max that they allowed. I think it was like 4 years. I think it was 4 or 6. Because I remember at some point they went to indefinite reenlistments.
Yeah.
and I remember only doing it. I did it once in Korea, and I did it once in Mountain Home.
Yeah. And I think it's after 10 years. If you're over 10 years and you reenlist,
Yeah,
then you're reenlisting indefinitely.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how was Mountain Home? How was your time there?
It was busy. Definitely stressful because I had a lot of pressure on me because by the time I got to Idaho, I was already E5, and I was very, very brand new to the career field. I was still
Yeah.
learning, but I was, surrounded by other people who had more experience, more time with them, and then at the same time, you're expected to, supervise, write award packages, and help people out with their things while you're still trying to figure your own stuff out. So it was a lot. It was a lot. But kind of had to take one thing at a time and focus on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, as an NCO, you come in and you're supposed to know, how to
Yeah,
lead and how to do all these different things, but you're coming in and you've just gotten to a brand new job field
yeah,
that you know the very, very basic amount that you've just been taught at
Right.
tech school just a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Enough to be dangerous.
yeah. So yeah, and like you get there, and there's also this. It felt like there was this unspoken expectation of you to already know things,
For an
Yeah.
NCO,
to
yeah.
to uh a more deeper level than what I had at that time, because my knowledge was very limited at that time. And then I got there in April, and then September I deployed again, but now I go back to LED, but now I'll go back to on the op side of things, so now it's a different whole different environment that I'm going back to the same place with.
Was there anybody in your unit or in your chain of command, or maybe a peer, who was able to that mentored you or kind of showed you the ropes and brought you up to speed? Was there anybody like that?
As far as like the job went,
Yeah.
not really. I again kind of figured it out on my own, and
Man, that's tough.
you have to. They did have curriculum you had to go through, like obviously additional training that were there, but the environment that I was in, I felt like I couldn't ask any questions because the expectation was that I was already supposed to know these things, so in a way it just made me not say anything and kind of again figure it out on my own.
Yeah. It's got to be a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
It is. And then I think my second deployment to LED kind of put things into a very, very big perspective. When we got there, so my job for surveillance was, you go into to work, you sit on scope in front of your monitor, and you see the whole air picture. You see where everybody's at, where every plane is, where every person is. Those when you see the iconic or like a typical map, I don't know, on TV with planes flying around, like we produce that map so you can see people, but that information also gets communicated to the actual real world players, so they're situationally aware of everything that's going on around them. So when you have a job like surveillance, and a request comes in to build a restricting operative zone, the time sensitivity on that is big. And if you mess up, if you put a wrong coordinate in there, I mean, you're putting lives at risk. This is not flipping burgers on the grill in 5 second rule anymore. You don't have 5 seconds here on the screen, you know and you had to do everything in timely manner. And I remember a few times just crying at the end of my shift, like, am I cut out for this? Because everything was so high paced and you had to type everything by hand. So you'd sit there like a and
Yeah.
you're double checking, you're triple checking, and then you're like, oh, I hope everything is okay. But then these requests go in over and over and over, and sometimes depending on what's happening, it just gets so fast that it's hard to keep up, you know. And we had we ended up having a few people, and we would, you take this, I take that, and we kind of had to come up with a system that kind of worked for all of us so that we could push these things out in a timely manner. And then you would have mission crew commanders. We had a DAFCO with us on that deployment. Was a army. You guys know what a DAFCO is, right? As the liaison for the Patriot unit for the Army. So
Okay.
they were with us there too. And then you had your weapons directors who would talk to the aircraft and, help them go wherever they needed to go. Um, and I remember like our debriefs, we would come in and our intel folks would bring up the feeds, the predator feeds from either subjects being targets being eliminated or kinetic strikes and everything. And at some point, and I don't know when, but at some point I was in this briefing, this debrief, and I remember the person getting blown up, and then in my head, I'm like, man, they had a family too, you know? You kind of start thinking about things like that. And you're like, I understand, like that person did something bad. And then kind of like services creeps back in with all the like human remains and stuff, And then, and I was like, yeah, but, is this like, should we really be coming big? Is there another way? Like, I don't know. I'm just here to do my job, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, taking
And
another life is serious business.
and
Even
I could
even for the
not.
bad guy.
I don't know how the special operators do it. I don't know how the predator operators do it when they had to pull the trigger. I don't know. I don't know. I know what'll happen to you afterwards. We'll put a bag on you of ice, but like I don't know if I could take a human life, you know?
That that pressure um, that you were going through was that, and the things that you were thinking, is that something that the other surveillance operators that they were also going through and thinking about?
A friend of mine, had a very hard time specifically watching the videos because to her it was like one thing to, do for a good cause or whatever. She was like, but I don't need to see that. And we all kind of had to sit there and, she had to cover her face. But there were times when she was like, I can't, there's too much death for me. Like, I can't, you know? And
Yeah.
everyone takes it differently, I mean, especially same thing with human remains. Like, not everyone is cut out for it, but to make people do that, that's also really, really messed up, especially when, something is voluntary, but you make it mandatory.
Yeah.
And it was like especially being in Germany too, like working in a dining facility, you get called in to go re-ice a body, and then you have to go to the DFAC and handle meat, and you got to cook chicken breast, and it's like, it feels the same. It just, one's in the bag, one's not in the bag. It's, it's
Yeah.
weird. And then I
Yeah.
remember, so my going back to this deployment, I remember one day, um, we were sitting on scope, and I was doing my building my zones or whatever I was doing, and then we heard angels, fallen angels, and I kind of took off my headphone. I'm like, no, what is fallen angels? And they're like, a helicopter got shut down. And you know how like you have sometimes you have the moment where everything just like slows down. It slowed down for me then because all I could think about was somebody at Ramstein is going to get that body and they're going to re-ice it and then it's going to go to Dover and then they're going to dress him there and then it's going to get to the family and then this heartbroken family is going to bury their loved one who sacrificed their life for this country. You know, it all came back full circle.
Yeah.
And I think at that time I was already considering like I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this like because it just brings back so much from all the duties that I did at Ramstein. I like just seeing that happen over and over and over again, and all I keep thinking about is more dead bodies, and then you associate that with food, and then you go to eat food, and it's just weird now, and you don't want to eat, you know. So after that deployment, I kind of told myself like because we were a there was only three squadrons and our deployments were getting rotated between three units at that time, so every year we had to go. So I already knew I would be going somewhere next year, and I think after that deployment I told myself if we're gonna get deployed again I can't go back here or somewhere like an old Dafra because it's going to be the same thing there. And I can't put myself mentally through that again. So if an opportunity presents itself, I'm going to try to go somewhere else. So my next deployment, I ended up going to Kandahar. And I was there for, I think, 5 months before my deployment got cut short. And I had to PCS to Korea.
You deployed again out of Mountain Home to
Yeah.
Kandahar? Okay.
Yeah, so this was a year later, so like around 15.
Okay.
And during this time too, so before I deployed, I injured my back. I was packing stuff to go in the storage unit because we were deploying, and I figured I'd save some money on my housing and just move everything to storage units and pocket some of that, BAH. And I got a U-Haul truck and I was pulling out the ramp, and I didn't know how long it was, when it was going to end, and it ended abruptly and I was not prepared for it, so my back went with it to the ground. And after that, I started having back issues. So by the time the deployment to Afghanistan came, I was already in pain and I was in constant contact with my medical team saying, hey, like my back is messed up. There's something seriously wrong. And they treated it as I want to get out of the deployment. And I said, that is not the case. I was like really hurting. And I remember they took an x-ray and they said, your x-rays are fine. We're not going to get you an MRI because so Mountain Home did not have an MRI machine on base. They had to give people referrals to go off base for that.
Right.
And I was like, well, can I get an MRI? Because sometimes things don't show up on x-rays. And he was like, well, it's going to cost Air Force too much money to give you a referral for an MRI. So we're going to give you physical therapy. And I did the physical therapy,
Oh,
deployed to Afghanistan with my messed up back, with like the gear and everything there. And it didn't get better.
Yeah.
no. I've never heard
Yeah.
somebody, I'm doing air quotes here, deny a potential referral. No, that's not
So
a,
this was the same person that my friend came in and she said, "Hey, I'm bleeding down there," and he said, "It's just your period." She was like, "No, I have birth control. It's not normal." And he said, "You'll be all right." She ends up in an emergency room 2 hours later with internal bleeding because her gallbladder ruptured or her bladder ruptured.
nice.
And her follow-up appointment was met with a, "My bad, glad you're okay."
Goodness. Okay, so I want to jump to Korea. What years are you in Korea? Because we may have been there at the same time.
I was there in 16. So I got there,
Yeah.
I left, so I came back from Afghanistan. I literally had like I deployed between I deployed in April, and then I left Afghanistan in sometime mid September, and I was already in Korea end of November.
Wow.
Of November 16th. Yeah, we were
Yeah.
definitely there at the same time. I was in Area
Oh
One
yeah.
up at Cape Cloud. Yeah, yeah.
What was your job? What did you do there?
I was the G9 at Second Infantry Division, so I was on the general staff doing staff puke stuff. But I was up in Area One in the north of the No Smile line. Were you in Osan?
Yes.
Yeah,
We worked out of the H tag there.
yeah. I liked the chilies there.
The chilies, their strawberry lemonades were delicious.
There was no chilies in Area One.
Not I'm talking about a Osan.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Osan was a treat for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Yeah, I was there September to October, or I'm sorry, September to September of 16 and 17. So it was just a 1 year
Okay.
tour for me. But yep.
Yeah.
What were you doing in Korea?
So in Korea, my job was a mission crew commander technician, and I worked alongside with uh, the mission crew commander, the MCC, which was my commander at that time, and I was just his right hand man essentially. If they needed whatever they needed, I was there. In addition to doing surveillance and making sure everything was identified, there was no foreign tracks, or if we saw something suspicious, we would bring attention to it. If someone was like busting airspace, because sometimes the Chinese and the Russians like to come out and play around
No.
and push buttons, you
Oh.
Good
know.
friends.
So we did have an incident one time where they had to scramble jets, and that was pretty interesting. I was sitting on scope with my MCC, and I was just scanning the area, like everything from up all the way down, left, right, and I saw this track originating in the northern area, traveling in the wrong direction, and they go past certain areas that they're not supposed to, and you're like, oh, is something happening, is something about to happen? Okay, I need to
This is
tell
it.
somebody.
This is it.
So because it's like, maybe it's just because sometimes you get like fake, not fake, but like you'll get a return, but then like it fades and it's like really nothing, and it's like, is this one of those? It's not disappearing, it just keeps going. I was like, oh, I was like, sir, I was like, you know and I tell him that it's going down, it's like not slowing down, and sure enough it like starts going off to the side, but it's still traveling down to the South Korea airspace, and they ended up scrambling the jets to go meet it, and I have never seen such a quick response time
Yeah.
before, because they were like, send them, and they were there.
We've we've got it down to a science in South Korea.
So you did a year-long tour in Korea,
Yes.
and that was the only time that you had to scramble the jets?
Yes. Well, I
I
didn't
suppose that's
scramble them. I just told
well,
somebody
yeah,
there was
yeah,
something
but
off.
yeah, but
But it was still really cool to see how, how just how fast it happens, It's like one thing when you're already downrange and things are happening, but just from the moment, like, hey, we got to look at this, and they say, hey, you guys got to go up there and look at it, and then they're already there, and the track ended up disappearing, and they ended up circling around trying to locate anything. They couldn't find anything, and we never figured out what it was. But it was also around that time when um, the U.S. was doing show of force, and we're kind of not. I don't want to say making fun of it, but we had the DMZ tours, and they say, "Oh, this is the North Korean tower," and then South Koreans built this, and then North Koreans said, "We'll build ours higher," and it's just like this, who can outcompete who? Sometimes God gave us the feeling. And I remember there was a time where they were blasting music over loudspeakers, and then North Koreans started blasting it louder on their side, and then they ended up having a show of force, And I was like, I was like, just sitting here, like, trying to make sure these kids behave. Like, I don't
Been
know.
going on since the early 1950s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My granddad fought over there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I bet that's different to now.
So where to after Korea? Were you going back to Mountain Home?
Oh God, no. No. Then I got married in Korea, and I saved my husband out of uh, North Dakota, out of Minot,
Why not?
and I was supposed to go to Hawaii for 4 years, and we decided we didn't want to do, a very long, far distance relationship, and we just decided to tie the knot, and we both got something in between, which was Herberfield, Florida. Away
Better than
from
why not?
Minot. Yeah, better than Minot. Not quite Hawaii, not as expensive, but you still got your white sandy beaches, and it's nice out here. Minus the hurricanes.
Herbert Field?
Yes.
Hurlburt.
Where
There's an L
Hurl,
in there. Yeah.
Hurlburt?
Hurlburt.
Where is that in Florida?
That is northwestern Florida, so like the Panhandle,
Panhandle.
the Gulf. Yeah, it's like it's close to. We're about like 3 hours away from Panama City, closer to
Okay.
Alabama and
Yeah, that's right.
Mississippi and all that stuff.
Okay. Well, let's take another break and then we'll get into your
Okay.
time there. So you're down in Florida. You're remarried. How long are you there for? What are you doing?
Well, before we get to Florida, I also want to say that I had my first back surgery in Korea. So I got there, let's see, November, and I had my first surgery in February. So, and that surgery was excruciatingly painful because the guy that operated on me, I was his third surgical patient, and he ended up removing, I don't know how familiar you are with the anatomy of the spine, but you have your vertebrae and your facets and whatnot. So he ended up shaving off more than 50% of my facet between L5 and S1 level, and I did not know how bad that would later become. So I left Korea with a fixed back, I fixed the issue, but I ended up breaking over time. So when we got to, let's see, so we get to Florida, and this is where the fun begins. So I get there in November, and then October of that following year, so of 17, I am having another surgery now on my left side to fix my left SI joint because my nerve pain was so bad. It would go all the way down to my ankle, and it just would not let go. It would not
Yeah.
stop. And it made it difficult. Like I couldn't sleep at night because it was just constant, like 10 out of 10 pain. Like legitimately, like no joke, it was bad. So I get that done.
I have had multiple back surgeries myself on my lower spine, and
Yeah.
yes, that is indescribable pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometime between that recovering from that surgery, I end up getting pregnant. Well, we tried to start a family, and I get pregnant, and so now I'm pregnant, still recovering kind of from back surgery, and I now also have to go to Moldova for a month because I was because I speak more than one language, Russian being my other language that I speak. I was part of the language enabled airman program where if they needed a translator or something, they would, solicit your help and you would go and help them. And then every year to keep our um, accuracy and stuff, you would have to go through an immersion course once every few years, and that immersion course was over in another country. And in my case, this time, because of everything that was going on with Ukraine at that time too, there was tensions and all that. The safest place for the students was to go to Moldova at that time, and that's where I ended up spending my next month there. just learning more Russian that I already knew.
You didn't have any, I guess control of that. You obviously have to recertify or whatever that you speak this language proficiently enough. Um, you don't have any sort of control over when you do that recertification or where you go for it.
They do. So typically they will notify you in the email saying that, you're coming up due for whatever, and you go on their site and there's some dates that are available, then you have to go and clear it, obviously with your family first, make sure your spouse would be situated, and then run it up the leadership, because they won't let you go unless leadership says it's okay. If they can afford to lose you for a month, then you'll go. But they also understand that it is an Air Force requirement, so at some point they have to let their troop go to get this up to date.
Yeah. So they give you a window
Yeah,
to get it
but
done, and then
there's
you work that out with your family and the unit. Yeah.
yeah. The only thing is that you don't have a choice of where you go. So I think the other location that was available was like Lithuania or Latvia or something like that. And you just, sign up for whatever. And then you have to give dates, like this date, or that date. And they try to match you up with the first date and like location that you pick. But again, needs dictate everything. So kind
Of
of like
course.
your
Yeah.
wish list.
Were you getting paid for any of this? Were you taking an annual DLPT
Yes, I was.
for which
DLPT and
languages
also
exactly?
Russian.
Just
Because
Russian. Okay.
yeah, so when I was growing up in Ukraine, we did have to learn both at school at the same time. Like we had to learn Russian and Ukrainian both. But primarily I was spoke Russian to my mom, so I wasn't using Ukrainian that often, and I just decided to stick with Russian since it was more
Okay.
prominent anyways.
Yeah. Very cool.
So a month in Moldova, huh?
Yes.
Did you
I
meet
was
anybody?
Oh, I've met some very interesting people. Thank you for asking. Thank you for reminding me. They First of all, it's definitely reminded me of home. The nostalgic Soviet Union looking apartment buildings, and I was
Their
like,
beauty, the beautiful Soviet bloc. Yes.
yep. I was like, man. I was like, it's probably what it looks like back home now too. I was like, I haven't really changed at all. But it definitely brought back some nostalgic feelings. I was staying with a couple at their house. My bed was made out of plywood, uh, uh, not boxes, the crates, the shipping crates, those the flat ones.
Pallets.
The pallets, yes, thank you. Pallets and a mattress on top. Um, and I Okay, so when I was little, my grandma's house was like on the seventh floor, and her balcony was kind of like sloped at the end. So whenever I would come out to her balcony, I would always be terrified the whole thing would like break off and I would fall down with it. And the couple, their house, their floor at the end of the room was also slanted, so that like I'm horribly like horrified of heights. And yeah, that was interesting. But then we did get to do a lot of activities. We went to see different places. We went to a winery, just kind of get to know the culture, and while at the same time you're interacting with people, you're practicing your language skills and whatnot. And one of our activities was they had a May 9th parade, which was a Independence Day parade, I think. And they had a lot of people there in military uniforms, and people were taking pictures with other people. And I saw someone that looked like important, and people coming up to take pictures with him. So I said, I want one too. So I came up to him and I said, "Excuse me, can I take a picture with you?" And tapped the man on the shoulder, and he said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And so I take a picture with him, and then he was like, "Would you like the Prime Minister of Defense in the picture as well?" And I said, "I'm sorry." And he said, "Would you like the Prime Minister of Defense as well?" And I said, sure. So I got a picture with the Prime Minister of Moldova next to Prime Minister of Defense. And I have no idea who they were, which is probably horrible on my part because I probably should have looked it up before I went to the country. But I think it just
Did
made
they
this.
have any idea who you were?
No, and that, like, so the craziest part about this is that their prime minister can literally go in a trolley and get from his house to his office, public transport, no security, nothing. Like people were walking around with, like earpieces and stuff. And then because after I took the picture with him, I was like who is this guy? And I like get on my phone and like try to look him up and I'm like, Prime Minister. I was like, there's no way this is the prime minister. So I think in a way, this me not knowing who he was kind of made it better. And
Okay.
then, sure enough, because we were supposed to meet up, but there was two other girls in my class, and we were all supposed to meet up together. And I was waiting for them, and they weren't coming. So I was like, I'm not gonna stand here, just walk around, look around. And they had some people singing, like some other stuff, and then I just, took a picture.
So for that month, they send you over there, but it's not really organized. You stay with a local family,
Hmm.
and you go about and you do a lot of local functions to really sort of immerse yourself
Yep.
Immersion. Yeah.
in that area to practice all facets of the language.
Yep. Yep,
Yeah,
and we would go, obviously, we had money too, so we would have to go and buy things and go out to the restaurant. You just immersing yourself into that culture, you
yeah,
are part of, you know, the
yeah.
life there. And so,
That's very cool. That's very
yeah.
cool.
And it was very nice for me too because it's been so many years that I've been in the States and I haven't really heard anyone speak anything other than English and then other languages that you get here and there, but not in the environment that kind of did feel like home in a way. Because in Moldova they do speak some Russian, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people do. That's why they send people there to Russian speakers for classes because that is, something that is practiced there still.
So you head back to Hurlburt. What happens
Yep.
next?
I gave birth to my daughter and then and then the following year I get a surgery again on in like in the summer, get another surgery on my back. But now it's a level above L4 to L5 because it's getting bad now. And then I had to go and repeat the surgery again in October. And then, 2020 comes around. Uh, yeah, let's see, 2020 comes around. I get more surgeries. Oh no, I give birth to my son in 2020. And then I have more surgeries. And then ended up getting so bad to the point where essentially the first surgery that I had on my back, where the guy removed my facet. It got to the point where my spine was just grinding bone on bone,
Hmm.
and they had to fuse it because my discs were gone, and I was not able to get a disc replacement. And even if I was, because I already had back surgeries, they wouldn't do it, so I had to get a full cage. And I tried to avoid that surgery for as long as possible, so I went through rounds of injections and nerve burning and all that stuff. And in the process of it being so bad, I get prescribed Percocet, and I'm on that for over a year, along with other muscle relaxers. So my quality of life is progressively going down. While at the same time, I'm still at work. We're still doing training missions here at Herbert Field because part of my job was to go out there and make sure people could operate on, their Link 16 and y- they knew how to essentially work in a deployed environment when they went there. Um, and my back gets to the point where now I'm spending half of my days teleworking at home and then going into the office. But then because of the medications that I'm taking, I can't go into the office because they knock me out and they make me go to sleep. And I can't be asleep at my desk all day, you know? So, That goes on for a little bit, and then I can't get out of bed. I can't put on socks. I can't put on underwear. I cannot shower by myself. Like my husband became my everything. Like my extra set of hands. And if it wasn't for him, I don't know if like where I would be. Um,
So I was going
no,
to
go
say,
ahead.
so yeah, so at some point, med board is probably initiated. And maybe I'm jumping ahead of you
Yeah.
a little.
Yeah, so med board is initiated, and I have finally agreed to do the back surgery, to do the fusion, and I go in to see this doctor, and he's like the best in the area. He says, "All right, we're gonna do it." So I get to the hospital, and they put me under, and then I wake up, and I'm like, "Holy crap! I don't feel any pain. I feel so amazing." And then the nurse comes in, and she said, "Yeah, he couldn't do the surgery." And I said, "What do you mean?" And I guess so on my side joints, right? You have one, two, three screws on one side, and you have three screws on the other side. Well, when you flip it this way, right? When they have to do the fusion, one of the screws was sticking out too far out. So the screws would have been touching, and he didn't
Mhm.
have equipment to essentially calculate a safe distance that would not damage me or potentially paralyze me. So he said, "I can't do it. We'll find somebody else." And that was October. And then between October and January is when I actually ended up having my fusion. Um, yeah, I was pretty much bedbound on high on Percocet. And like I had no quality of life. I was laying in bed, and we had like ring cameras set up in the house, and I would watch my kids just go about their life. It was so depressing, you're just looking at your family essentially move on without you. What would it be like if mommy wasn't here? Well, it would be just like that, and you sit there and you say, no, how long can I go on like this for? I want to get better. I want to get better. But everyone, that you talk to over the years is just either throwing you off to the side, saying you're exaggerating, it's fake, there's nothing wrong. But when then things are wrong and you get it fixed, they still expect you to work like a horse. And you're like, hey, maybe it's time for me to get out. Can't do this forever. And then they say, maybe a med board is a great idea for you. Let's go ahead and through med board. And I'm going through med board. I'm still waiting on the surgery, but now I can't get the surgery because I'm in the middle of med board. And the only way that I can get the spinal surgery is if I'm literally dying. Like in their paperwork, it said that we will not improve your surgery unless it's life threatening, unless it's like gallbladder or appendix or something. So I get my neurosurgeon to write a letter saying, like, hey, this is serious. Like, she needs it yesterday. And they still go back and they, no. So we're now like 2 weeks away from this scheduled surgery date. And after that, I'm just holding on to this date. Like, if I don't show up, I just don't show up. But if I cancel this and I can't show up, I'm screwed, essentially. So they say no. And then now, it takes like another week to get a reply from anybody. So I send another letter to them and they finally agree. But now we're like a few days away from the surgery. And the morning of surgery, TRICARE still did not have the surgery approved. We were on our way to the hospital driving in the car, and I was on the phone with TRICARE saying, I have my surgery in 45 minutes. We've been working this out for months now. How is this still not authorized? And then by the grace of God, by the time we get to the parking lot of the hospital, they told me that your surgery has been approved. And I said, thank God. So we finally got there and, they checked their computer, everything, and, got the surgery done that day. And um, they said that my recovery is going to take probably over a year because of the extent of damage that I have to my back and like the scar tissue and everything. I remember there was a neurosurgeon I ended up getting a second opinion from. He told me, he was like, "Girl, you're riding a tricycle on two wheels." And I said, "That's great. Still
That's good.
here." Um,
But by the time you
yeah.
had that last surgery, how many had that been at that point? Six, seven?
So let's see. I had the first one that I had to do twice. So the Korean doctor, they operated on me and then they opened me up again the next day because he left some bone fragments in there that were causing me pain. So that's, I don't know, count that as one or two. I count that as two because I got opened up and sewn up twice. So that's two. Then two SI joints. That's four. Two on my back, and then the last one on my back. So altogether is like seven.
That's all in the span of
Between
four
15
years,
and
4 years.
24. Between
Oh well,
15 and
okay.
24. Plus, pregnancies and like my pregnancies, my deliveries, I had to do C-section.
Yeah.
Because of during childbirth your bones do separate a little bit and you kind of, so the
Mhm.
space opens up, and because I was fused my bones were not able to do that, so there was a risk of uh, the baby's head getting stuck in the birth canal, so they
Yeah.
decided to go with the C-section. But the problem with my first C-section was is that when I had my son in Germany, when I had the epidural done, it took 3 doctors and 9 tries to get the epidural in, and they would go in like all the way and take it out, all the way and take it out. And the only anesthetic that I had was just for my skin, so I couldn't feel the needle go through the skin, but I felt everything else.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much that traumatized me till I was in the room with my daughter, about giving birth, and the anesthesiologist comes in and they're talking about the epidural and everything, and for the spinal, and I was like, I can't do it. I just got this like panic attack, and I was hyperventilating. I felt like I wasn't even there, and he was like, holy crap, like I can't do this to this poor lady, and they ended up putting me under general anesthesia for my first C-section. That's how bad it was. And then I felt so guilty afterwards because after my daughter was born, like they didn't allow my husband to be there when they were doing the C-section. He wasn't even allowed to watch through the window, through the little whole square glass window that they had in the door. He had to stay in the room. So when, they got her out, they wheeled him into the room where I was supposed to be recovering in a bassinet, and they let him cut the umbilical cord and everything. And I felt so horrible, and I was like, this is not like a birthing experience a father should have. This kind of, messed up. Like, at least let him be there for it. So then with my son, when I gave birth to him, I was like, I'm gonna grow a pair of balls and I'm gonna get this spinal done because I want my son to witness the birth of his son, and I want him to hold him when he comes out. And I also need him for emotional support because there's a lot of people, a lot of mess, a lot of needles. I can't do this on my own.
Yeah.
And then he went in there with me. They put on his scrubs and everything else, and they got me all hooked up. And the anesthesiologist was fantastic. I did not feel a thing, and I always think I was just working myself up so much because I remember the first time it was a horrible experience, but he was fantastic. And then my husband watched our son born, and that was awesome.
Good. So
Yeah.
after your last back surgery in 24, you said,
hmm
how rapidly did the med board move after that?
So let's see. I had the surgery in 24 in January. I was home for, so I get back around April, or no, not 24, 23 it was. Yeah, 23 because 24 was my retirement. So I had my surgery in 20, hang on, not 20, no, it was 23. Yeah, it was 23, and I got back to work at April, and then I was out already in January. So 7 months.
That's
But it was
relative.
also, yeah. but also during that time, like I didn't know my out date until I think it was like September or October.
Yeah.
I just remember I remember going through the process, and I remember thinking about, like skill bridge and all that stuff, but I couldn't even do skill bridge because with skill bridge you need to have your out date, and I didn't have that yet.
Right.
So
Mhm.
I feel I kind of got, screwed on that, and I didn't have an opportunity to even apply or do anything with it. It was just a lot of sitting around and waiting and waiting. And then when they finally came back with their decision, they also threw in the casual, "Hey, well, would you like to finish up your last 3 years here and then have your retirement paycheck too, in addition to your VA?" you know. And I said, "No, no, thanks. I'm good." And I heard a lot of, "Oh, well, what's 3 more years? It's just 3 more years. You'll be all right. You can do it." But sometimes 3 more years a year is not worth of mental health stress. Sometimes you just gotta realize money is not everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then even after, so I was still recovering from the surgery. I went back to work. And I was still teleworking, still half days teleworking, and still at home in incredible amount of pain, still on Percocets. Not much hasn't changed other than the pain has alleviated a little bit and I'm able to walk. But other than that, I'm still pretty messed up. And it was like that for a while. They started weaning me off Percocet. I want to say just a little bit before January, and I never experienced withdrawals until that day. As being on something like Percocet for years, and then all of a sudden somebody messing up your prescription, and then all of a sudden you don't have it. I thought I was gonna end up in the emergency room. Yeah. And I remember just sitting there thinking like, I gotta do something else. There's gotta be something better than this. I was like, okay, I can't do this Percocet. I'm just getting addicted to all these pills. And it's not doing anything for me. My pain's not really going anywhere. We gotta figure something out to do here.
How much did they have you on of the Percocet?
So I was taking Percocet 10 milligrams 3 times a day. And I was also taking tizanidine, which is like a muscle relaxer on steroids. And that was, I think it was like 8 milligrams, I think it was per. And that was also 3 times a day. So essentially, what would happen was I would take Percocet and then I would take Tizanidine and it would just knock me out. And there were
Yeah.
times where my work schedule was so messed up and like I had no control over like how the meds would affect me. So there were times when I would be teleworking out of home at 12 o'clock at night, at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was bad.
So at what point did you start with your art?
So after they retired me, I was still had a long recovery process, and um, I I don't know. I just tried to figure something out, like what did I used to do when I was a kid? What makes me happy? Um, I started going to therapy. My therapist suggested that I should pick up art and see where it goes. She said paint a picture a day or try start something on something, and I did. Um, and I don't know. It just became a an outlet for depression and healing in a way. It gives me something to do, you know, and it's something that I enjoy doing. And then I realized that, hey, maybe I can actually give this a shot because, sooner or later a day will come when I have to look over my life and say, have I accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish? And I just kind of, in this transition problem period between military and civilian life, You get used to the structure, the camaraderie. You have a purpose for so many years, then all of a sudden you get
Yeah,
out and there's nothing. Like starting from scratch. You feel almost feel like a teenager again out of high school. It's like, what am I going to do with my life?
yeah, that whole
And
support system is gone. Yeah,
then you also have to take into considerations what you are actually capable of, because you don't want to go into a job interview and tell them, yeah, I can do all these things, and then no, like, hey, maybe I'm really pushing it, and then you're like, oh, stick it out, but it's not worth it, you know. And I struggled. I have a degree and everything. It's just finding a job has been a struggle, especially in today's day and age with things happening all over the world. And I just thought, maybe I can do something with this art stuff, and it's being very fulfilling.
was that something that you did as a kid? Was paint, or draw, or have some
Yeah,
sort of artistic outlet?
I was always artistic. I like to sing. I like to draw art. I didn't have a lot to paint with, so I think I started really like messing around with painting when I was stationed in Langley. I remember having canvases in my room and stuff. But it's something that's been with me throughout my whole life, you know.
Yeah.
And that part of me kind of never left, and I just decided to embrace it and see where it goes.
What I have zero artistic talent, so I don't know.
It's
But
okay.
what is it for you that the painting or whatever, what is it that you get out of it that is therapeutic? I guess I because I don't know.
So for me, for example, a painting gives me an opportunity to escape to, I don't know, a different place, maybe a happy place. Like I am painting that behind me. I love mountains. I don't, can't really go anywhere and see mountains, but if I was there and if I were to imagine my happy place, then that would be to look at a mountainside and a green valley and just try to surround myself with the goodness of my imagination,
Yeah.
you know, to kind of, because I feel like the more goodness, the more warmth, the more love you see around you, maybe somehow, it'll bleed into other people, especially considering today's day and age where, you everywhere you look, whether it's, Ukraine that's at war or, other places of the world, it's just, that it's like death is everywhere again, So to combat that, combat it with something that's beautiful, something that makes you happy, something that you can look at and just go, you know.
What's the name of your studio?
Ethereal Art Gallery.
Ethereal Art Gallery.
Yes.
So we'll make sure to tag that in the social media posts for this for you.
Thank you.
Of course.
And I
Awesome.
don't know. I guess the dreams don't end there, because I do also, speaking of like childhood passions and stuff. One of my childhood passions also is ancient history. So I grew up with Lara Croft. Tomb Raider was my kind of idol, running around exploring things, and that still carries now too.
Fans too, but for all the wrong reasons.
But no, in addition to this art thing, I also dabble a little bit into ancient history, into my own research, because there's a lot of things that don't
Ah, interesting.
Oh, oh,
add up. Dun,
some sort of.
dun, dun.
I'm sensing some sort of aliens built the pyramids kind of
I'm
conspiracy
not
No,
thinking
I
here.
don't.
saying
I
it's
don't think it was
aliens.
aliens. I don't think it
I'm
was
not
the
saying it's
aliens.
aliens, but it's aliens. Okay.
Aliens. No, I don't think it's aliens. But there are a lot of contradictions there. So
Hmm.
I think Egyptian people just don't get the credit that they deserve. I think their um, advanced technological abilities have been downplayed. I think they were capable of more than that. So I'm not saying
Having
they were built by aliens. I just think they were more advanced than what people give them credit for, and that's all.
having lived in Egypt and being a fan of history myself, um, I think that people today take a very low opinion of people in the past because because nowadays we have a cell phone that tells us everything,
Yeah,
whereas people in the past actually had to go out and do things and find a way to make things work. And yeah,
it's
they
about
were
survival,
smart back
man.
then too. Just because they didn't have a cell phone doesn't mean that they were dummies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you look at places like Sacsayhuaman, like those stone blocks are huge, and they are so precisely cut. You can't even fit a piece of paper between them. And then you're like, how you move them there for what purpose? And it's not just one stone; it's a
Mhm.
whole plaza.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of tons of stone carved into perfect interlocking shape. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a, you know, history is buried, and we just every time people discover things, stuff just keeps getting older and older and older. Like they just found a stone toy car in Turkey that they have dated to 7,500 years old, and the wheel was supposed to be invented like 5,000 years. So
Yeah.
this is predates that, you know.
It should make everyone approach studying these things with more humility, because there are a lot of people
Yeah.
who think they have all the answers, or at least most of the answers, and we've yet to but scratch the surface.
You know, when I went to when I was in Korea, I had an opportunity to go to Cambodia to kind of fulfill my Tomb Raider dreams of exploring the sites I've seen on TV. And I told my tour guide, I had a private tour guide, and I told him, you know, they take you to like all the popular tourist attractions, and I asked him, like, can you take me somewhere where people don't usually go? And he took me to a lesser known tourist attraction where the temple hasn't been rebuilt, so it's still like in cobbles and pieces, and there's vegetation all over it. And I was climbing. I dropped my wallet inside of one of these ruins, and then I never got back. Thank God I had my or things fell out of my wallet, but thank God my credit, my debit card and my ID card were in my wallet. Just dropped some like business cards and stuff. But you know, when you are actually in the ruins, when you look at like the layout and how much vegetation takes over and how much stuff it just covers. You know, there were stones and pillars that you would have never known that were those things if you didn't strip away the stuff. So there's a lot of things that are still hidden all around the world.
El Dorado.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Liz, thank you so much for coming on and sitting down with us today. We really appreciate it. Your story
Thank
is
you
awesome.
guys.
Yeah.
We have to ask
It's,
our final question, Dan.
that's true. Go ahead.
So, from being a little girl in Ukraine, immigrating to the United States, trying to get out of Jersey as fast as you possibly can, all the unpleasantness, shall we say, you had to deal with in Ramstein and in Qatar, back and forth all over the place, the back surgeries, going to the Chili's in Osan. Would you do it all over again?
I would, but maybe I would take care of my health better and advocate for myself better. And when people told you no, you say no, you're wrong. I'm right. That
Yeah.
type of thing, because I think a lot of people take that for granted. You know, they can feel intimidated by hiring, especially, you know, difference between the E's and the O's. And I think at the end of the day, you know, if you can just treat everyone kinder and actually like care, especially, you know, the medical doctors, you get into this field to, I hope, to help people, not to brush them off, you know, then just do what you came here to do and just be
Yeah.
kind to people. There's so much ugliness in this world. Just be kind and be kind to
Amen.
your kids, because it starts there. It starts with you as a parent, you know?
Yeah. Amen to that. Well, God bless
Mhm.
you. We can't thank you enough for coming on with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity.
So, what'd you think? Definitely, definitely interesting. We haven't talked to anybody that I guess has that many different skill sets.
That may be true.
Well, I mean,
Um,
I guess skill sets maybe isn't the right idea. That has crossed that many job fields
yeah,
because her being in services had so many different possible areas that she would work, and then when she transferred over to the command and control area, there were also a bunch of other within that there was a bunch of other job fields that she was
yeah.
capable of doing.
Certainly seems like it's probably one of the biggest pivots because we've had folks who were, infantrymen who went special forces. Yes, it's a big leap, but you're still at least in the same football stadium. But going from services to operations surveillance like she did, that is a huge leap.
Yeah, yeah,
A lot of medical issues too. I mean, you serve long enough, you're gonna get those. Um,
yeah. And she certainly is not the first veteran to have a uh, a doctor or surgeon screw things up. Um, sad but true.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, almost like a compounding problem with one surgery stacked on top of the other and the other and the other. And I mean, you can only, I certainly not a orthopedic surgeon, but I imagine when you're dealing in a sensitive area like that where the real estate's pretty limited, you can only have so many of those surgeries.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot, man. That's a lot.
So, but in the middle of all that though, she was able to have a family, which is really important.
Yeah,
And
and I mean, for the most part, a pretty successful career. Despite some of the traumas and everything that she had going on, she was still able to be upwardly mobile. Um,
yeah,
and I mean, yeah, that's just a lot, man. That's a lot.
I'm very, very sorry that she had to deal with the sexual assault in when she was in Qatar. The sharp program. Do we call it sharp across all the services? I don't know that's what the Army calls it. The,
I
the
don't know.
sexual harassment assault response program. Either way, all the services have one. Whether they call it that or not is irrelevant. That program was created specifically for instances just like the one that she
Yeah,
lived through.
yeah, with the
So I
different reporting systems. Yeah,
Yes, and it's taken some heat over the years because it's certainly not a perfect program and it has been exploited and wrongly and some bad stuff. But all in all, I mean, the
right.
program exists for that situation right there, and
Yeah,
it's unfortunate that she was. I don't know if she was unable to use the program. I don't know what access she had. We there are facts we just don't know here. But the bottom line
right.
is she feared reprisals and
Yeah,
therefore she wasn't really able to do anything about it, and that is quite unfortunate, and it's quite harmful to her, of course, but something like that has or orders of magnitude beyond just the people involved because other women and men hear about these things, and maybe that prevents them from wanting to join the service because they hear stories about things like that, and it's
yeah. Compounding all that, I mean,
yeah,
obviously the trauma that she went through and not being able to really talk about it is terrible. But then having a chain of command that is already so toxic that you don't trust them. You don't just about your job. They've already created a hostile enough work environment that you don't want to have anything to do with them, and then to compound that with with the assault, that's just awful, man. That is
yeah,
that is terrible.
very
That's
unfortunate,
terrible.
but she she had a good career from what we could tell, and we're glad she came on. I'm glad she found a creative outlet for her in her art, and we talked to her after the show cut for everybody listening now that we're gonna work with her and try to get her to commission something for the studio. So TBD.
Yes, yes. We'll just have to come up with something thematically appropriate. So if you have any ideas out there, please go ahead and shoot them our
Yeah,
way on
great,
on all the
great idea,
social
great
media and
idea.
stuff. Yeah. Um, I I I don't have any talent like that.
I don't
And
have any talent at
she's
all.
we know, but she said that this is something that she carried over from her childhood, and she remembers being in Virginia at Langley and having canvases and stuff in her room, but then really picking it up, you know, over the last few years with all the surgeries and being so immobile and it being therapeutic and almost like escapism, the same way that some people play video games for escapism
Or start
or
podcasts.
start podcasts or play sports. But there's a variety of ways to get away from your worries and your cares and stuff. But I don't know. I think it's great that she's got it. Maybe it's because I lack all that artistic talent that I don't quite, maybe I can't because I'm not talented like that, but I can't quite grasp the therapeutic properties of that.
Well, I mean, it's focus. It requires a level of focus that, I mean, that's the escapism part. If, while
Yeah,
you're focused on the tedium of shading and coloring and shaping and doing all these things, you're not thinking about all the bad stuff. So I get it, even if I have
yeah,
no artistic talent myself.
yeah. That's great though. That's great that
Yeah.
she's kept it up all these years and that she's using it for that purpose now. That's great.
Yeah.
I also think it's pretty funny that she dropped her or contents of her wallet into a five
Ancient ruin.
thousand year 5,000 year old ruin. So now one day when somebody does actually pry off all the vegetation and stuff, they're going to be like, wait a minute.
They'll find a business card and be
Yeah, they'll
like,
find a business card or a library card or something and be like, wait a minute. Ancient Cambodians did not have library cards, did
who is Hank Smith?
they? Yeah, so I think that's pretty funny. That's pretty awesome though. But yeah, Liz, we appreciate you. This as tough as some of the stuff has been for you to talk about, we do appreciate you sharing it with us, and we know that the audience does too.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, moving on to Free Fire.
Oh boy.
We are entering our third year of recording. We have been doing this for 2 years, brother. Believe it or not.
Oh man. Have we gotten any
So,
better at it?
in certain aspects, yes, absolutely. In many others, no. Um, but that means that it is time to ask the annual question:
Yeah.
what are you reading now?
Oh, perfect. So I will. I have an answer to that. It's going to be slightly modified. Oh, over the Christmas week, I did the same thing I've done for the last 5 years, and that's read the latest Cameron Winter book by Andrew Clavin. So this, this would have been the fifth one. Let's see. For those who are watching,
You got it right there behind you on the
right here.
shelf.
So after that, The Dark, which is from a Tennyson poem, by the way. So that was
That's
number
Lord
five.
Tennyson to you, sir.
Yes, yes, I am a peasant. Yes, thank you, my lord. Um, I love Clavin, so pretty much anything he touches, I think, is good. This one was really good. The way it ends, I can't tell if he ended the series or not. I want to say the series will continue. The way he ended it, he probably could, in theory, end the series on that. But I don't think he will, or at least I hope that he doesn't. So, I'm not currently reading that. I finished it about a week ago, so I'm kind of in between. What's up next for me? I don't have anything next. I do still have A Distant Mirror, which has been recommended to me by a certain person and then purchased for me by a certain other person. It's back here somewhere. That looks like a slog, though, man. I mean, come on.
Oh, I mean, it's Barbara Tuchman, so anything that she does is going to be great. But there is, it is not casual reading. We'll put it that
Yeah,
way for most
I'll
anyway.
start working on it. I'm
Yeah.
deep into some devotionals and stuff right in this kind of month of January. I'm kind of heavy into that, so I may pass for another few more weeks. But
And I
um,
mean, a distant mirror does tend to focus on France, following uh, a French nobleman. So I understand if you want to put it off until you have absolutely nothing else left to read. If you really don't want to read about France.
well, who doesn't love the frogs? I mean, besides you, of course. All right. So, have you finished your Hungarian book?
Oh yeah, I finished that a long time ago.
Okay. So, what
I
are you
am
reading?
I am now reading A Great and Terrible King, um, by Mark Morris, who I have several of his other books, and I've read other ones too. But he's a an English historian. He wrote a great book on the Anglo Saxons. He does a fantastic job of making what could be, complex or tedious history very entertaining to read. He's excellent author. But A Great and Terrible King is the essentially the biography of Edward the First, or the Longshanks, as those who watch Braveheart.
That
Fantastic,
wildly inaccurate
fantastic.
historical
Oh yeah, oh ridiculously, wildly
and amazing
inaccurate.
movie.
But it is still an amazing movie, and Mel Gibson's performance, and all the others are just still fantastic. But it is the story of Edward the First, and he was a fascinating guy. That guy went through a lot of crap in his life, especially in his youth. Um, and then things only got more complicated when he became king. I'm not done with it yet. I'm about halfway through. He's already king. He's already gotten back from the Crusades. He has just finished crushing whales the first time, so he hasn't. I have not gotten to Braveheart area yet.
You mean the aspiring young country or the large aquatic mammal?
The aspiring country, the aspiring
Okay.
country. Yes, he has already crushed uh, Gruffydd ap Llewellyn, and divided up his principality amongst lesser players, and building all his
Llewellyn
castles.
is the most Welsh name one can have. Yes.
Pretty much, pretty much. But it's an amazing book. I would recommend it for anybody that likes history, and sometimes finds uh, history authors a bit tedious in their writing. Mark Morris is amazing. That's Mark with a C, not with a K.
Good recommendation.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks everybody for hanging with us today. Give us a 5-star review and a some nice words of encouragement if you can on social media. We're on all of them except TikTok.
Yep. If you want to get a hold of us, you can obviously go through all the social media and stuff, or you can go to the website and hit the contact us link, and you can send us an email. And if you want me to answer your question or your comment or what have you, then that is the best way to do it, because Roger deals with all the social media stuff, and maybe you'd rather talk to him, so you can go on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and stuff like that, and you'll have a better
Yeah.
chance of talking to Roger.
Or you could just swing by Dan's house, which his address is. No, I'm just kidding.
Uh,
All right.
let's not do. Don't you dox me.
Thanks everyone for hanging with us today, and remember, your service matters.